I'm Allie Zendrian, editor-in-chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that may not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my co-host and trusted financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, how's everything going?
Things are going well. It's been a good week from a business perspective, so pretty pleased with that. Weather-wise, getting atypical rain and a little bit chilly, and by chilly I mean in the mid to high 50s to be fair. So Pearl is going to be a little bit bummed. Pearl is my dog, that we're not getting our WALK. She's in the room. I clearly cannot say the word out loud, or she'll be a little frustrated by that. But overall, it's been a good week. But for you, you're in a different location. The viewers are probably noticing. You want to share where you are and what you're doing?
Yes. So I appreciate everybody's patience with me this week. This week, I'm actually coming to you from Denver. I am still at Nitrogen's 2026 Fearless Investing Summit, a la the different backgrounds. And I should also be honest, so I did prep for this week in that I found the news items, but also since I've been running around doing other things, I basically am going to read directly from press releases instead of summarizing things. So I'll just be honest enough to say that.
I think, folks, I know for me at least, I'm giving you plenty of grace because you're, doing it from a new location, and even sometimes, as you very well know, working remotely from home. Yes, you can work from different locations, but it's always different. Your setup is not the same. So I'm just glad that you're here and we can have this fun conversation today.
Yeah, and thank you for doing this. So speaking of where I am, our first piece of news is from AtoZ communications client Nitrogen. The firm announced today on its main stage its Nucleus, which is Agentic, an agentic AI engine embedded directly into the advisor platform, which positions the tool as a workflow solution rather than a standalone chatbot. Nucleus is designed to change what happens before, during, and after a client meeting, helping advisors really crush those meetings. And instead of toggling between tools or manually entering data, otherwise prepping reports late at night, advisors can now use Nucleus with real work inside Nitrogen. So there's a lot of things that they can do, from like sending risk questionnaires, converting statements, a lot of great things, but it's also been great as I got the explanation of it live on stage. None of this is being done in a way that's without the financial advisor. So at the end of the day, the Nucleus can run, but the advisor needs to approve everything. So with that in mind, I know that we talk about AI a lot on the podcast. What do you think about this latest development?
I think it's a great use of AI. It really does make a lot of sense. I mean, the word for me that I feel like I keep using over and over again is context, where whenever the tool is going to be so plugged in, it's going to have that context, the correct data for the different client. It's going to know a little bit more about that particular client situation and is able to help the advisor focus on their humanness and deliver a great meeting, which is, of course, as you mentioned, what they're really focused on here. And even the last part, it's not just sending out things willy-nilly to a client without the advisor saying, yes, this is what I want to get sent to Allie. I've looked it over and I'm comfortable with whether that's the recommendation. Maybe they make a slight tweak for the advisors that adopt them. And I think it's going to be crazy if big firms or other advisors don't adopt tools like this. For those that do, I think their capacity is going to increase. They're going to be able to serve clients more deeply. I'm really bullish on tools like this for sure.
Well, thank you for that. Among the things that I found interesting, so in the demo that we got of Nucleus, one of the things that was asked of it was basically, can you give an investment recommendation? And so the chatbot basically said no in a polite way, but pointed the advisor to, well, you could do this or check out this last statement to see the person's perspective on whatever the investment was. So it was nice to know that there are parameters that it's operating in between and that it is compliant. So it's great to see, like you were saying, I feel like this is going to get rid of a lot of the tedious stuff. Even as I was thinking about it selfishly, I'm like, if I could get agentic AI to find news for me so that I didn't have to I spend usually Thursday mornings giving everybody the secret to how the sausage is made, somewhere between an hour and an hour and a half, depending on how good the news week is, combing through and trying to find the news that we want to talk about. If a bot could do that for me, hey, an hour and a half with a client work or an hour and a half doing that, my time is not well served looking for news. But If you could, like, what are some of the things that you would imagine doing with agentic AI?
Oh, honestly, now that you mentioned that, I wonder even if we talk about Perplexity, which is a more not generic in a negative way, but ChatGPT or just a traditional large language model, not specifically designed for financial services. But I don't know, maybe something like Perplexity, since especially it's marketed as a research tool, and at least their web browser, which is called Comet, does have agentic AI in it, and I've had it help me build some basic spreadsheets before, which has been really helpful. But I'm also now wondering if you could give it some prompts and have it go and at least give you some summaries. Now, again, it still is going to have to be you confirming. It's not just going to obviously build our script, and we're not just going to have our AI twins on this podcast. I don't really see that's where podcasting is going. I think people are going to want some authentic connections. So back to the original question, though, agentic AI. So far, the biggest that I've used so far, like I said, has been some spreadsheets at times, and that's been pretty helpful, where I had the context of one of them was a very basic pricing calculator, for example. And I had all of the formulas. Hey, if discount if they're a current client, or I want to add on if they have this particular tax form. This was for my tax prep service, as you can now probably tell. But it was then able to build it out. And now when someone asks, hey, what would my cost be? I can go in there and within seconds build it out. And I didn't have to spend all the time going through cell by cell, creating the concept. And then AI was able to do the heavy lifting, the tedious work, if you will.
So I completely agree with you about the podcast in particular. I think I would want to use it in a way that's like, let's automate the tedious things. I mean, even still, I guess, similarly to Nucleus, where, you're providing recommendations or, doing a task, and then ultimately I have to say yes. It would still be the same thing of, you presented me with news options. Maybe for whatever reason, I thought that they stunk. Now I have to either adjust the prompt or do my own research. But I agree, we will never be replaced by AI bots. But speaking to that, actually, so at Nitrogen's Fearless Investing Summit, Josh Brown was among the keynote speakers, and he was saying he anticipates that AI is really going to innovate in the back office kind of areas. So the way that at first when AI came on the scene, it was basically, we're going to take advisors' jobs. Oh my goodness.
Right.
It's really the things that advisors sort of have no business doing because there are machines that can do it. Why don't we just let them do it? And then, you have all the time to do whatever it is that you want, but that's never going to replace the kind of confidence and the things that you give me in doing my financial plan and chatting about it with me and sometimes having emotional conversations. AI is not going to be able to do that with me.
Right. Obviously, I'm biased, but I fully agree with that too. And I agree with Josh Brown there, where it's a lot of the back office stuff, the admin, because even, again, trying to semi-play devil's advocate, even if a ChatGPT or even a Specialized could start to ask you more questions into the quote unquote emotional side of things, it's still not real. Even if it's say it's the exact transcript of our conversation or any two human beings conversation, it's still not the same. I think actually I heard this on a Kitsis and Carl podcast when they were talking about AI. They also called it, I think it was artificial empathy, or it was something to that effect, where even though the words were nice, if someone wanted it to help answer why is money important to them and kind of go down that line, which is one of my favorite questions, it's still artificial. Those are ultimately just words on a screen. There isn't true emotion behind it when it's an AI tool versus, again, another human being. So for the 1,000th time, I'm personally not worried. I mean, there's still firms out there that are doing A-share mutual funds and living, in my humble opinion, in like 2000, and they're still doing at least relatively okay. They're not out of business. So the fact that I hear things, oh, he's going to replace all advisors in 5 years, 10 years, or whatever compressed timeline, I'm like, have you noticed how old school the majority of our industry still is? Pretty sure we're not going to be replaced at least anytime soon that I can foresee.
Yes, 100% agree with you. So our second piece of news is from Marchex. It's going to showcase how franchise brands turn customer conversations into higher booking rates, increased marketing ROI, and more consistent performance across their networks. So marketing teams, I think, as we've discussed here, are being increasingly put upon to figure out how to tie revenue to their activities. And as I've said on the podcast, it seems like with marketing and PR, a lot of times people just sort of shrug and say, yeah, you know what, I can't directly correlate the article that you were in with the client that you gained or whatnot, but that this is going to help in that aspect. It's also saying that it'll help with inconsistent call handling, which causes gaps in the customer experience and other missed revenue opportunities. So I think this sort of leads into our conversation before of using AI and using technology in a way that will help us do things that we are not doing properly right now. I was curious what you think about that.
Before I answer, I am going to toss this one back to you, since you do have way more experience specifically in obviously PR, but also you've been around a lot of marketing teams too. So whenever you first read through this article, what were some of the things that jumped out to you?
Well, at first, as I was mentioning before, the delineation between I did XYZ marketing activity and caused this to happen. Yes, granted, sometimes it's really not that easy to track, but also we should be getting better at that. I don't understand how, in a world that has bit.lys that you can track and things like that, how we aren't just leveraging these ways or working to leverage them so that we can say, you know what, because Allie got me in Market Watch, I got a client 2 weeks later and they said that that's why. So we got to get there. But I also appreciate the fact that they were talking about the keeping the client experience the same, because I think that that's crucial. And there are so many like little gaps that you can uncover that I think even to the person who's performing the service or selling the product, it seems like everything is just fine because you can't experience it from the customer's perspective. But once you hear or once you get that perspective, you realize, no, actually the chain got sort of broken over here and it doesn't have to be that way. So that struck me, but I would love to hear what you think.
I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure that has been just a challenge, and I'm sure at times frustrating when it's like, hey, you've gotten in all of these articles. How do we then quantify, okay, because you're in this Market Watch article or the Wall Street Journal and the other places that you're getting your clients placed in, that then they're clicking the link. Oh, they're then checking out that firm. They're checking out that company. So I could see how there has been the struggle of trying to quantify some of it. So I think in this case, if I were to maybe make a speculation here, I think it's going to help great PR folks like yourself that are doing good work. And I think it may be, and again, you're closer to this than me, so I'd love your thoughts on this, maybe expose the ones that aren't doing so good, that are just kind of a trust me bro type of vibe, versus, again, maybe you can't right now because the data and whatnot fully be able to say this is exactly why, but you at least have a much better educated guess or hypothesis, hey, this is driving value, versus just, I have no idea, I'm just paid to do the basic, oh, let me just get you in this and that's all I do. So what are your thoughts? Do you think it's going to maybe expose those that maybe aren't as good?
You know, around the same time that you were saying it, I thought that same thing. So I love that we're on the same wavelength like that.
Nice.
But now as I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I think it's just going to change how we practice things. For instance, so Market Watch being the example, whatever publication that I or somebody else gets a client into. So is it just then that maybe we're targeting the wrong kind of publication, that it's not turning into a client conversion? Like that very well might be the case, and that's good information for us to have, instead of saying, well, obviously the gold standard is the Wall Street Journal. Well, if, you know, and God forbid, I don't know that even would be the case, but if that's not doing anything for you, then why are we still doing that? Let's go find somewhere else that's actually going to create a conversion. I mean, it may in a way, and then I don't know if that's poor performance or if that's just not having the tools and the education to understand that what you're doing isn't leading to a good result. But yes, whenever this does all come to be, obviously it's someone still producing a result, but the result isn't giving the client what they want. You got to change course. And if you don't, then shame on you.
Fair. Yeah. And it's a slightly different skill set, where now it's not only having the connections and getting people placed, but then it would be tracking the data. Hey, what are we truly wanting? Because I'm sure for most people, the goal isn't simply, I want to be in the Wall Street Journal, hard stop. Like, obviously that's very cool, and you get to brag about it to your friends and, you know, talk about it at a cocktail party. But what value for the business? Oh, it's overall awareness, or it's driving traffic, and that traffic is ultimately converting to a client, or again, whatever the specific metrics that the client cares about. Now it's honestly, especially as you get to see more of this and as you get to see more data, you can arguably add even more value, because now you're able to truly see and track with all the data. Hey, I know that Wall Street Journal has been, you said that's your main goal, but you could say, hey, from my experience looking at all of the data, that hasn't actually led to other clients getting as much business. So if your true goal is to get more business, you can then now say, hey, I might recommend, it might be a smaller outlet, but it's driving more business in your experience and what the data has shown you. So now your expertise just increases in value, I think, through this.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been kind of encouraged by more clients and prospects have been showing up to me understanding that they need to have a goal with their marketing and their PR. I feel like to your point of, and I'll be honest, there are still people who say, I want to be in the Wall Street Journal just because I want to be in the Wall Street Journal. Totally fair. I
Fair.
get it. And I hope that more clients and more groups get to that place that they understand that there needs to be a purpose to what they're doing. So let's not just send out email marketing like willy nilly and whatever. At least we're checking a box. Let's make sure, like, okay, well, if the end goal is that we want to have more clients, let's do this. If the end goal is that we want to acquire another practice, different set of tactics, but let's do that versus just saying, yeah, let's like do marketing or do PR. You have to be specific and you have to be intentional with what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And again, that's why people pay for your expertise, because they might come in with, I heard from someone I need to do PR, and I heard to talk to Allie because she's great. Those things are both true, but then when they talk to you, it's like, okay, well, what are we focused on? Yes, we will do these things, but why? Oh, it's to just drive traffic, drive brand awareness. Okay, that might result in, again, you work a little bit differently if it's that versus maybe something else. Again, I'm not obviously an expert in your world, but yeah, I could see tools like this, again, just also assisting you in the way that you serve and help your clients.
But I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. So actually you are seeing some marketing results. So please, let's not like downplay the fact that you're intentionally doing something and it's generating good results. So pat on the back and claps to you. Okay.
Yeah, fair. I'll take it. And then also I got to give a shout out to my coach, Lucien Govender. He's been helping me a ton. I've done some boosting of posts recently, gained a bit more confidence, leaning more into my values and some of those things. So that's also helped with the marketing approach in the last few months. Yay. But I also appreciate your compliment too.
Of course, anytime. So our next piece of news is from Rain. So what struck me is that they were saying in their press release, 92% of employers agree that faster pay cycles improve employee engagement, but only about half of them that were surveyed plan to modernize their payroll systems this year. The press release also said, at the same time, more than half of employees say that they would stay with an employer longer if they had faster access to earned pay. So all of this to me says, and I think that we've tangentially talked about this before, but I can understand from an employee's perspective, I already worked whatever number of days it is, whether it's a full week, it's 2 weeks, it's a month, however long, I've earned my money already. Why is it that it takes forever and a half to get the money that I already earned?
Right. And again, if I had to speculate, of course, I'm not a payroll expert, but I'm going to assume that it's been the systems. It's been a system issue in the past where maybe it took a human being X number of hours to actually run payroll. So if you have to do that only twice a month versus every week, for example, well, then obviously it just got more expensive to ultimately pay out the same amount of dollars. So if there are tools like this that are coming in that make it, it's probably not as easy as a click of a button. Maybe it'll get there. I don't know. But if it at least drastically reduces the time, now maybe it could be a benefit, because all things held equal, would you rather have $100 today or $100 tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Most people are going to probably say $100 today. I'd say about everyone, unless they're not logical. Yeah, everyone would want money sooner rather than later, right? So it makes sense that could potentially be a good selling point for a company. And maybe we do see, instead of the 2 week or bi-monthly pay, maybe we see it every week. I couldn't imagine it being much quicker than that, but still, it's better than maybe what the setup is for some now.
Yeah. Well, tying our first discussion with this, I wonder if agentic AI could really be the solution of, okay, well, that, and to your point, you would have to survey, like, it's depending on contracts and whatnot. So-and-so wasn't at work for XYZ day, so that means that they don't get paid, or we have to debit this from their PTO and whatnot. It is more complex than just saying, yeah, pay so-and-so this week. But it feels like, why aren't we automating this much more than what we already are? So I hope that we do get to that place.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it seems like it would be a huge benefit for a lot of employees. And I'm a big believer of companies, if they are able to take care of their employees, the end customer is going to benefit. And then a lot of other stakeholders going to benefit as well.
Yeah. So our final piece of news is from Quinn. The firm announced its new CMO. And in the press release about that, it was saying that for decades, comprehensive financial planning spanning debt, savings, investing, retirement, and long-term goals has remained inaccessible to most consumers because traditional advisory models rely on manual one-to-one labor that doesn't scale. The result being a persistent guidance gap affecting approximately 170 million Americans, which, I mean, that number just like blew my mind, but it really does make you feel like, gosh, we need to get on top of this. Quinn was built to close that guidance gap by automating the creation and ongoing delivery of personalized fiduciary grade financial plans. I thought that this was interesting. First of all, I give them credit for calling out the issue, because I think even, and not to speak for you because you should speak for yourself, but among the reasons that a lot of people got into Elements was wanting to go down market and saying, if this makes me that much more efficient, then that means that I can help the people that arguably really, really need my help versus the people who will just benefit a bunch from my help. So would love to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I loved how Quinn is framing it. I think what you had just said, the specific quote that came up that relates to that was traditional advisory models were never built to reach everyone. And that was by Roy Markowitz from Quinn. And that's true. I mean, even in a lot of the reports that we see for the industry, advisors typically over time end up going, quote unquote, upstream, if you will, and simply making more revenue per client because I think a lot of people have found that if you can work 15 hours a year on a particular client and make $3,000, or you can work 15 hours a year on that client and make double or triple or even quadruple that, obviously, again, back to our $100 today, $100 tomorrow question, which would you rather have? It's probably the one where the same amount of hours is working and making even a bit more money. And I think a huge problem, and I'm really passionate about this one, traditional financial planning tools simply were not built for any sort of model. You can have massive inefficiencies. If a client's paying you 10 grand a year, you can be very inefficient and still be profitable. Client pays you $1,000 a year. All of a sudden, you need to, one, you should scale the service model a little bit differently. That's part of it. So service model is an issue there, but also you have to respond to that differently. You can't do quote unquote traditional, I would argue, and this is my words, old school planning with younger or potentially younger or this down market, which I don't even love the term down market, but it just happens to be the easiest to describe it. So the fact that Quinn is calling that out and is saying, hey, this could be a tool that could help folks serve. And again, maybe right now that's the sons or the daughters of current clients. It's their kids and they didn't really have a model. And instead of now losing a bunch of money on them each year because they have to spend so many hours, arguably, for using tools that those kids literally don't even care about, different conversation. Yep. Now they can use a tool like this, scale their advice, still provide that great service without being as hands-on as they would have to be with the old tools.
Yeah, I'd love all of that. I understand what you're saying about down market. Just feels kind of not nice. I guess maybe less affluent. Which, I mean, to your point, it could be the children of, or it could be just whoever who for whatever reason couldn't accumulate the kind of wealth that somebody else did. But I think that really speaks to your point of we should be getting those people much sooner, because I'm sure if you gave somebody the opportunity and said you could be getting close to retirement and be super scared that you're going to outlive your money, or you could get to your retirement and I could sail around the world all year and I'm just fine. People are going to pick the latter. Everybody wants that confidence, but they need the help to be able to get there, and they should be able to get it at the time and in the way that they deserve.
And a lot of the times, if you are able to talk to someone whenever they're younger, that same piece of advice, which is going to sound super quote unquote boring, hey, have you considered opening a Roth IRA and do your best to try to max that out each year? That one piece of advice, which almost every advisor would be, oh, that's so simplistic. Everyone knows that. They can just use AI for that. Yeah, but will they do it? Sometimes just having a human being tell you, hey, this is a good idea, even if you're not even working with that particular person, that advice could legitimately be life-changing for them, because now they start building the habit of saving early on. They have 30, maybe even 40 years to allow compound interest to do its thing. And that advice could be even, again, more valuable than the great retirement planning work that someone does when they start working with an advisor at 55. It's just the time to service some of those clients and the minimal revenue that they might pay, at least under a traditional AUM model, or even a subscription. If someone makes even median household income of 84 grand, probably going to be tough for them to pay even a $3,000 financial planning engagement.
Sure.
But if, again, they can get a little bit of that advice earlier on, again, legitimately could be life-changing.
Yeah. Well, and when we think about life-changing, so it's not even really just one life that you're impacting, unless that person doesn't have children and whatnot, but you could really be generationally and even vertically changing a whole slew of people's lives. So may we get to this place, because I think that at the end of the day, this industry is about helping people. And there are a lot of great people who want to help people. Let's help them help the people.
Right. And again, I think modern tools like this, or obviously you already called out Elements, which is, I can't say enough about Elements. I won't talk about them too much on this particular show, but I know for me, it's made me feel way better, where even if a client who doesn't have substantial investment assets yet, maybe, hey, we can start to manage some of those. We'll be consistently saving over time. And the service model looks a little bit different. Their situation also is different. It's not as complex. It doesn't take as much time as someone making $250,000 a year, all the RSUs and tax complexities that come with that. If someone just needs some basic advice and someone that they trust to send a quick Elements message, hey, I was thinking about taking on a personal loan versus this, within 10 minutes, could be able to respond, hey, here's what I would recommend based on your Element scorecard. So even sharing that context with them. And now I could potentially be profitable, not that it's of course all about the money here, but still be profitable serving clients, serving less affluent clients, especially when they're younger, knowing that the advice that I'm giving them, likely if they're already doing a great job having some investments when they're in their early to mid 20s, that's going to grow to become a very large client. It's just, you have to have the models, the tools, the technology in place early to capture them at that point. And then over time, they might ascend, if you will, into the different, more traditional models as we know them now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and especially for being patient with me as I had to change schedules and whatnot. And thank you for being the kind of advisor who really wants to help all the people who deserve it.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. Thank you so much for the kind words, and glad you're able to make it to this show today, and safe travels from Denver.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.